What's Tim been cooking at Apple over the past year? I'm Ryan Dawes.
And I'm George Lim.
So if we start off with the iPadOS and iOS 17 rumours, what are we expecting this year?
Well, they've been focusing a lot on sort of health stuff in the past, and this year they're apparently going to be bringing out a new app.
The journaling app, which is very interesting. I don't know if I want Tim Cook knowing all my deep, dark secrets.
Well, they'll have a very big, banner saying private, on device, put all your deep, dark secrets in here. And for the most part, Apple have been quite good with that. I think it's interesting that obviously in the past they've been focusing a lot on the fitness stuff with the watch and everything else. So it's interesting that they're going for the sort of the more mental health stuff this time.
Yeah, journaling has been proven to have very good mental health benefits, so I can see why they're doing it. And you're right, Apple seems to be going more and more into the health side of things. They're supposedly bringing the health app to iPad for the first time.
That's exciting, and something I didn't realise wasn't already a thing, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it seems like a big sort of oversight, which is not the only oversight that I think Apple has made, which they might be sorting out in this update. But one of the improvements of the health app is potentially detecting mood based on your speech. And just all of this is just making me feel a little bit invasive. Apple is very good with the sort of privacy stuff, but it's just getting a little bit creepy.
So interestingly, I wonder if this is Apple's take on AI. So obviously AI is the big conversation at the moment. And something I wanted to bring up was the fact that because they never like to sort of just copy what everyone else is doing. So I'm wondering if they're bringing it into different ways. So having it detect speech, having it, understand if you speak a few times, it can generate your own voice. They're not going to come out with a generative AI thing like ChatGPT, but rather they'll do it in the background really subtly. And I'm wondering if that's Apple's take on it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Apple's big thing is on-device AI rather than do what Google does and send it off to the cloud. They keep it all on-device, which is just a lot more privacy beneficial.
Exactly.
So another thing we're looking at is potentially interactive widgets.
So yeah, one of the things that Apple brought out, I think it was iOS 14, was widgets. Everyone went, yes,
finally.
Widgets. And then you can't interact with them. They're not actively something you can use. The widget opens the app, and that's all it does. And I'm hoping, and this is a hope, is that Apple give us interactive widgets, shopping lists, calendars, being able to scroll through the different weather thing rather than having to open your setting every time. Little things like that, which I think if they bring that, because the widgets on iOS and iPadOS are, in my opinion, because of their format, they work better than the Android ones did, at least when they released them in iOS 14. But I hope that they just add that extra bit of punch to the widgets.
So now we're getting on to the thing that I have to keep checking my notes to see that it's not already a thing. We're supposedly finally getting iPhone-style widgets on iPad's lock screen.
Yeah, why they didn't bring them out at the same time?
This is the annoying thing with Apple constantly. They have so much real estate with the iPad to use, and they never really utilize it. And it just seems like that thing is just kind of, why wasn't this here before?
Yeah, I think they did it, in fact, with widgets when they brought them out. They had just that sidebar, if you remember. Yeah. And now then they brought them out to the whole home screen. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they did do that. And they'll say it's, the greatest thing ever come on iPad. You'd be like, you brought this out on iPhone last year. Why wasn't this here already?
So also with iPhone, which is another slightly weird thing, because we've only heard so far that it should be coming to iPhone, is a smart display when it's on charge in landscape.
See, I hadn't heard about this. This is interesting.
Yeah, so this should essentially turn it into a smart display for interacting with things like the smart home and all that. But again, we've only really heard about this feature for iPhone. I mean, it's got to come to iPad, surely, but...
So I'm wondering whether this is this the next stage for something like MagSafe? Are they going to bring out a new MagSafe puck that to go to that wireless future that people keep saying that Apple are going to go to? I think it's interesting, and it coming to iPad makes sense. Although with the 10-inch and 11-inch, so the bigger one, and even the 12-inch, I think that they're potentially too big for those sort of smart displays. It depends how interactive that is.
Yeah.
Like if it just becomes a clock, when you're charging it at night, okay, great, it's a clock.
Which I feel is about all you're going to really fit on an iPhone display. With the iPad, again, you've got that real estate to be doing a lot more with it. And it feels like it'll be turning the iPad into more what Google announced with the Pixel tablet. Like when it's on charge, when it's docked, then it turns into a sort of smart display.
It would definitely be a lot of money to buy whatever accessory it is to hold that iPad in that form, and even the iPhone in that form. They're going to sell it for $200-300 which will be, you know, something ridiculous here in the UK. So it'd be interesting, and it would definitely be a take to go against that sort of Pixel Fold thing, but I don't know whether we'll see the iPad just yet.
Yeah. So it looks like we're also going to be getting side loading finally on Apple. So
Apple don't like Europe at the moment.
Cydia is fully dead now.
It's got to be.
But yeah, so we can finally put apps onto your iPhone through means other than the App Store itself or through a developer account.
Yeah, and I think the rumours are this is only going to take place in Europe to begin with.
Yeah.
Because of all the laws that the EU have put in.
Probably not in the UK because the CMA will step in with some really backwards anti-competition laws, exactly like they did with the Activision Blizzard deal.
But it'll be interesting to see how Apple do it, and if Apple make it, you know, you can sideload, but it's really, really difficult that you don't want to. Or maybe they make the App Store easier somehow. You know, they'll do it so that the general user doesn't actively want to go sideloading, and if you want to sideload, you have to, you know, hack through several different doors to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they'll meet the bare minimum requirements on this just to not face the EU's wrath.
Yeah.
But Microsoft, we've been speaking about it, they've already said that they are creating an app store ready to go on iOS as soon as it's allowed.
Ooh, that'd be exciting. And I'm guessing Amazon's going to do the same because they've got their own Android store.
That means we might finally get an actual dedicated Xbox Cloud gaming app on iOS, which would be nice.
Not something I'd thought of. That is interesting.
One thing we've not really heard much about, which really needs to happen, is improvements to Siri.
Yeah, so again, with the AI conversation, I think it's about time Apple kind of bumped Siri up a bit. You know, they announced Siri back with the iPhone 4S, well, S for Siri, and they haven't really, you know, it's been incrementally getting better and the voice has improved, but again, it's not that standout voice assistant that we all want. And I think with the conversations that are happening over at Google with Bard and everything else, I think it's about time they ramped up Siri in some form.
Yeah, I mean, they have been hiring a lot of AI experts to clearly do something on this, but how quiet it's been makes me feel like they've maybe dropped the ball a little bit on this. I think there might be another year before we see anything major on it.
Or we'll see a teaser and then we won't see it for a year.
That could also happen, definitely. Other things we're supposed to be seeing slightly smaller improvements, but very noticeable day to day. AirPlay is one big feature which might get an improvement. So you should be able to cast content to devices, particularly in like hotels, without having to go through the whole sort of loophole of connecting to the sort of Wi-Fi and all of that sort of thing. So, but it'll be interesting how they do it. I presume it's going to be some form of sort of code linking sort of device.
That makes
so
sense.
You can't do what you did to me once and just rock up outside my house and play stuff on my TV.
Yep. that, to be fair, I was connected to your Wi-Fi, so that was much easier to do. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do with that. I've recently got off a holiday where they didn't have anything like that built into the TV, and it was massively frustrating. So yeah, I hope that sort of thing, if Apple sets the standard, I hope that can become a new norm generally going forward.
Can definitely hope. And then the other little one is improvement to Control Center. That's supposed to be finally getting its first big major redesign.
That would be nice. And again, it's something that I think until we see what they do with it, I don't think I know what I want from it, if that makes sense. They'll bring it out and they'll be like, I obviously wanted all of this.
It'll be interesting to see exactly what you say, what they quite do with this, because it matches in with the rest of iOS, like particularly the home stuff. It's very sort of similar. So if they redesign the Control Center, it feels like a redesign needs to come to those other apps as well.
We'll see what they do, I think. And then the last thing that they are rumoured to update is the Wallet app. But I don't think we're going to be seeing much of that over here, because I think that's very heavily to do with the Apple Card stuff that they've got over in the States. But apparently the Wallet app is getting a big update. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the end for the iOS section. Let's talk about watchOS, which is supposed to be getting its first really major revamp, a whole sort of user interface change.
Wow.
And we're going to be seeing widgets pushed to the front and center, which again feels like it's going to be quite a sort of big theme this year anyway. And we'll see live activities also finally coming to watchOS, which again feels like one of those things just like,
why isn't it
that
right
there? Yeah.
Yeah, if live activities come to watchOS, I think that really does hammer that point of interactive widgets on stuff like iOS and iPadOS. I think if they're focusing on widgets, they've really got to sort of bring it all out across the board. It'd be interesting to see what they do, because I think watchOS is so iconic at this point with the bubble UI and everything else. And I don't know what I would want different. Again,
it's just more of that contextual real-time information, I think,
Exactly.
which if they can do with live activities and widgets, that just totally makes sense to me.
Magic.
So if we move on to the hardware side, we're finally supposed to be seeing a new Mac Pro, which would be great. Now, it seems likely that we'll see the M2 Ultra debut on this device. Again, makes perfect sense, but that's quite exciting.
I think that Apple really got to be careful with the Mac Pro, because I know the Pro audience are very particular when it comes to the Pro products. And I think with the M2 and the M1, the M lineup, because everything's baked into that M chip, I do wonder whether people will receive it as well. I wonder if they'll bring back the trash can Mac Pro, because that was a smaller device that I think people complained about because you couldn't upgrade it so easily. But because you can't upgrade the Apple Silicon stuff, I'm wondering if they'll bring it back into that smaller form factor.
Yeah, I mean, they're really struggling now to differentiate them to, the Mac Pro, why people should invest so much in that. I think that maybe there could be some tie-in with the VR AR headset, so that they could connect it, so sort of especially sort of high-end developers and enterprises can connect the VR AR headset to it.
Interesting.
And really tap into that extra power. That would make it interesting.
That would be interesting. I think they're calling it Apple Reality. Well, the rumored name is Apple Reality, which I think is hilarious considering the reality distortion field. But I do wonder what will happen with this headset. Who are they targeting at? Are they targeting at consumers with like the rest of their lineup, or are they targeting at very much at developers and sort of programmers? And WWDC is the perfect time to announce something like this. So I do wonder whether they'll have a tie-in. Who knows? Let's find out.
Yeah, with the pricing, I think they are very much targeting the first version of the headset at the sort of high-end developers and enterprises who can afford it. I think they're only expecting to sell one headset per Apple Store per day.
Wow.
Which, considering the multitudes
numbers,
exactly of iPhones and iPads that they normally sell, that is very low expectations from Apple. But they are also expecting this to be their big sort of iPhone moment again. And this headset really... I mean, Google with the Pixel Fold, even though it wasn't obviously the first foldable, I feel like they've kind of shown that they're the innovative one of the sort of two big mobile manufacturers there again. And I feel like Apple needs to do the same with the AR VR headset to really kind of show that they are still innovative and ahead here.
This will either make it or break it, I think. It will either do really well and, that people will pick up on it and it will change the way that people work in that VR AR space, or it will flop massively badly and it just won't be something that people want. And again, we'll have to just wait and see what happens.
100%. But the other big hardware announcement that I'm hoping they'll make is a new mug with a Apple logo on both sides. I paid over £32 for this and they couldn't even bother to put an Apple logo on the other side of it.
Why do you think the handles are the same way around? Anyway,
exactly.
Let us know what you think. What do you think is coming to WWDC next week? And of course, please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed what you've been watching today. And until next time,